here's another reason why you want to take control of what you're doing.
Everything kind of funnels into the only winning move is not to play the game.
So I got to ask permission to buy the gun, and then I got to pay to ask permission to carry the motherfucker outside of my house. How about you go fuck yourself?
Happy Mother's Day, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Weathered Report. And here we are, all gathered around on Sunday after Mother's Day, and everybody has a mother. So we want to wish all you mothers out there, a happy Mother's Day for sure, absolutely. And I just got rid of my mom, so I shoved them out the door and ready for this and everything. But I fed them surf and turf tonight, so they're plenty satisfied and all stuffed full of steak and lobster. So that was good. How about you guys? What's going on?
Had a good time. Good time. Talked to my mom, 92 years old, still doing well. Yeah, checked in and she's doing fantastic. We were down visiting her a couple of weeks ago, and I'll be back down there in September. She's going to come up here sometime, and just pretty good. Went to my daughter's house, and my daughter made my wife a beautiful breakfast for her Mother's Day, and then that was just a nice, just all in all good day. And then I spent the afternoon at a car show at a brewery drinking beer.
There you go.
So it was really Father's Day.
Jason, how about you, man?
Made my wife waffles this morning, and then when she got home from work, I made her chicken pad thai.
Nice.
I
Nice.
won't eat it because it's got too much carbs and too much sugar in there, so I just made myself some burgers and pulled pork.
Well, if you're wondering who that strange guy over there on the bottom right hand side is, that is Minnesota State Representative Shane Mekeland, and I'm sure that he has a mom too. So, Shane, what'd you do for
Actually, my mom passed away in 2018, but nevertheless, interestingly enough, yesterday was my daughter's. She's a senior in high school, and so she went to prom for the first time yesterday.
Oh,
very
boy.
nice.
And a number of emotions within all that, right? Your little girl all dressed up, and so I'm standing there at this young man's house with his parents, and I'm like, isn't this the point where the daughter's dad should be sharpening a knife or something?
Exactly. Show me your knife
Then the
collection.
dad says, or at least, have a handgun on each side, to which I pulled up my shirt and said, I'm already there. So, it was one of those kind of funny things. But, and then I stayed up waiting for her to get home to make sure she got home. Because, not necessarily they were doing anything bad, but, it's a highways, whatever. And I think I texted her like 2:50 in the morning and said, when are you going to be home? And she said, well, in the morning, I'm staying at Grace's house, her girlfriend. And I'm like, oh, all right, fair enough. So it was like 4 before I fell asleep. So needless to say, having a day off of session, I still got a lack of sleep on account of worrying about, the little one. But I did make ribeyes for Mama and daughter.
There we go.
Today. That what do they call that flat iron grill thing? The Blackstone or something?
Blackstone, yes.
Yeah.
They bought me one of those last year for Father's Day.
Sweet.
And after spending, a day of my life I'll never get back putting it all together, because the directions all come in a foreign language.
Right.
But so mostly just figure it out. And then whatever, but so I did that. I did the ribeyes, and I did a vegetable medley. It was asparagus, green bean, broccoli, bell pepper, and onion. And, I mean, it was a whole medley of stuff, and it was really good. And then baby reds, little tiny baby reds, which Mom likes for potatoes. So
fantastic. Yeah, I love to cook, man. So anytime that I get to cook from my mom's every Sunday, because they come over for dinner, and that's one of the things that I do. From Friday we go out to dinner, but Saturday and Sunday are usually my days to shine in the kitchen, and I love to cook it all. You name it, I like to cook it. So it's one of those things. But yeah. But anyway, that's our special guest tonight, Shane Mekeland. He's
thanks for joining us, and for the next segment.
Absolutely, and just an esteemed member of the state assembly there in Minnesota. They call it assembly, or what do they call it up there?
It's the state legislature. So it's the House of Representatives.
Okay, cool. And you have been a representative for how long now?
I'm in my 6th year.
6th year. Career politician then.
Yeah, he's a career guy. Yeah.
Didn't see it. I actually thought in the beginning that 3 terms would be enough, which is 6 years. So this year was a little bit tough. Daughter was picking colleges, and if she would have picked out of state like South Dakota, I might have said, "Mom, we should probably move to South Dakota."
I want to go there. I really want to go there.
I have a lot of friends that have moved that. I jumped the fence to go to the other side because my business sold to go to Wisconsin after 10 years of trying to fix things. And it didn't work, as it turns out, because people don't want to fix things. Shane, the question I have for you, because I've known you since pretty much 2018 when you get started in there, because you were one of the guys that would say the things that is on everyone's mind, but most politicians won't. You are answering questions. You are very, very different because you're just a regular working guy. And I was amazed that you got elected the second time and just astounded the third time simply because of that fact. The machine couldn't stop it. They sure as hell wanted to. But that, because of that, you were bringing some reality to this mess that Minnesota is. And, we've had the discussion of, when I moved to Minnesota in 1987, it wasn't this bastion of liberal craziness in the city. And I went to art school in Minneapolis, and even there, it wasn't as bad. Something happened. It's this slow drip that's gone on. Then all of a sudden in the last, probably, I'd say since, not your fault, obviously, but this last 6-7 years, it's just exploded into identity politics and this group and that group. I mean, it's been crazy, and you've seen it, and you and I have had plenty of conversations on and offline, venting about some of this stuff. So what are you seeing? And because I'd imagine obviously you're talking with other people around outstate versus the metro areas. And I think this is the biggest problem across the country. California, I know, is outstate. California isn't the same as LA. What kind of things are you seeing as a legislator that, I mean, just I'm lost for words here. What are you looking at when you see something that, like, these are the city reps, this is the metro area rep, this is everyone else. There's obviously this fight. Is there any hope of getting people into the inner city areas that are going to have some common sense? Do you think it's gotten bad enough yet? I guess that's what I'm asking.
So that actually is the question is it bad enough yet? And that question is the question that needs to be asked everywhere you go. Is it bad enough yet? And at what point will it be bad enough? So to your question, yes, many people, I guess independent, some probably slightly to the left, center left, whatever. For them, I'm hearing more and more, it's bad. We see all the different numbers coming out and polling, and people are pulling away from the current administration, presidential administration, that is, the White House.
Sure.
Because they're not liking the direction everything's going. And this is where we have a unique opportunity, I guess, because people, the last thing I want to do is promise people a red wave. You have to get involved. You have to be part of the process, because they're going to do everything they can to not lose their power. And that is like in 2020, when COVID started, in 2021, but between all that time, it was 2 weeks to flatten the curve. And then all of a sudden it stretched on much longer than that. All of a sudden fences went up around state capitals in the US Capitol.
Right.
And they blamed it on COVID, but really what it was they feared those that had nothing left to lose, because so many lost everything. They lost their business. They lost their house, because a lot of them leveraged their home.
Right.
In an effort to keep their employees, in an effort to maintain, because they were told 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks turned into like 4 months, and then 6 months, and it just kept going on. And many of them even then lost their marriages and their family. because you put that kind of pressure on any given person, and all of a sudden everything is upside down.
Right.
So they had these fences up, and this became very apparent to me in the last 2 weeks of 2022. We were finally allowed to be back in person for the last 2 weeks in 2022. And if you've ever been, I don't know how you explain this. You come up on the elevator and you can go left or right. Doesn't matter. It's a big rectangle building. So it just goes around. It doesn't matter which way you go. You can go all the way around. But they put it in these electronic locks on the doors on each side of the elevator hallway, if you will. There's a desk on outside of those doors once you get through those. I have never in my life seen anybody sit at these desks. Aside from maybe an occasional person just sitting down with a laptop, trying to catch up on something. During those 2 weeks, I went up to the third floor, which the third floor is half Republican, half Democrat. Fourth floor is 100% Democrat, and so is the fifth floor. And the second floor is 100% Republican. But when I went to the third floor, I went through the doors, I swiped my little ID badge, and the door opens, and I see an armed security guard sitting at this desk. And I'm like, I've never seen that. And this is in 2022. So I literally looked at the guy, and I'm like going, oh, crap, I forgot something. Turned around, went through the hallway the other way, went through the other set of doors, directly across to do the exact same thing. And I said the same thing. Oh, crap, I forgot something. Went up to the fourth floor, same exact thing. But there was no armed security guards on the second floor.
Interesting.
So the security was not there for to stop COVID. The security was not there to stop a person who has lost everything, at least not for everybody, only for some certain somebodies. And to which I find it interesting because I believe, in my opinion, going forward, they feared the person that had nothing left to lose. Now they have everything to lose if they do not win this election.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that for sure. This is kind of what I thought too. And during that time, I was still in Minnesota. And one of the things we did was, as you know, I used to run the Tea Party meetings and do those things. And with all the closings down of all these restaurants, people were really getting angry about it. Well, one of the places that we held our meeting at was one of the restaurants that got closed down. And they own three or four franchises of that restaurant. And the owners were pissed. And they're Liberty guys. And so them and a few other people organized. Now, remember, we couldn't get together and join. I mean, you couldn't go to a restaurant. You couldn't do it. But we got restaurant owners from all over the state. We put the word out through Facebook and clandestinely, because it really was clandestine, because if they would have known, they would have showed up and broke it up, because it was in Champlin. And we had, I think, 110 people, restaurant owners from around the state, in a meeting there. And this was in the fall of 20, and trying to figure out
meeting.
What you were there. Yeah, you were there.
Yeah. Yep.
So one thing happened there that I found very, very interesting. And this is what really bummed me out. So you had these guys. There was a guy that had a gym, and he really stood up, and Keith Ellison went after him hard, and he was finding him like $7,500 a day, and just destroying his business and his whole life. And you had some other restaurant owners there that were larger, that owned many, like dozens and dozens of restaurants. And they're like, you guys, we can't do this. And we're like, we need you guys to be the ones in the front of this. The mom and pop shops, they know they can just whack them all and just get rid of it. And that's not a problem. But if they're not going to come after the franchisees. And I noticed that the franchisees were cowards in that day, and they wouldn't stand up. And they wanted to, but they were just like, oh, it was disconcerting. So I'm like, that we have the power right now, you guys. If everyone comes up that's restaurant people and say, screw it, we're opening, they can't close everyone down at once. And those people wouldn't do it. It was driving me crazy.
There was actually a meeting in June of 20. It was maybe late May, June, one of the two. And it was actually in May. And it was originally supposed to be, it was scheduled to be in St. Cloud. And then I think it was about almost midnight the night before, they got moved to Albany, someplace out in the middle of nowhere, much further drive. But this was, I mean, think about this, May of 2020. So, the whole COVID thing still pretty hot and fresh.
Yeah, still pretty hard.
And there was 700 plus people there, all small business owners. Like some were flower shop owners, some were beauticians,
Yeah.
hair cutting people, an amazing amount of restaurant and bar owners. And it was all about, what can we do? We should all just open on June 2nd. That was the kind of the
Yeah.
direction.
I remember that.
But
That was a statewide.
well, and then it was, well, but if we do that, then the Attorney General is going to come after us and fine us $25,000.
Yep.
And I had a lawyer that I invited there, and I asked him, okay, if they get fined the $25,000 and they end up filing bankruptcy, can you file bankruptcy on the $25,000? And the answer was interesting, because he said, I'm not sure, but I think so. And after the meeting was completed, whatever, on my way home, I called another attorney, which is the same attorney that was at that meeting that you're talking about in Champlin, who represented all those business owners actually in
Right.
their lawsuit, that actually got the governor to do a backflip and actually allow them to reopen.
Yeah,
But
good.
I called that same attorney, and he had the exact same answer, word for word. I'm not sure, but I think so. And, whether or not. So they had this plan. Everybody's going to open June 2nd. And sadly, only a couple did, because of the fear.
Right.
And those that did, they got hammered pretty hard by the Minnesota Department of Health or the Attorney General, whichever. It always made its way back to the Attorney General, and it was like a $25,000 fine. And I know, like, shortly after that, as things were starting to get a little less fearful for some, if you will, we went on a walk in a state park with another family, and the gals all kind of went ahead, and so it was just the other father, myself, and then the stepkid. And the other father said, have you met anybody? You getting any, kind of thing. And I looked at him and said, dude, under the current Attorney General's guidelines, you have to have 6-foot distancing. You have to wear a mask. You have to do all this stuff. There is no man that has 6 foot plus 8 inches. And he
That's
tipped
right.
over laughing.
Yeah.
But that was the reality, because, like, they literally were going after everything.
Yeah, they were.
There's actually a little pizza restaurant in the town that I live in, and she opened that day, that June 2nd. And so they punished her by forcing her to close that day, which was interesting, because the Department of Health person was there sitting in the parking lot, and she waited till the local law enforcement left before she came in to enforce, because the local law enforcement went there to patronize that business, knowing they needed this money so much, and probably because they're sick of eating, convenience store food. But they waited for the police to leave, and then they went in and enforced it. So out of that, she was given a mandatory 3-day shutdown.
Right.
And then about 2 months later, they slapped her with like a $10,000 fine, 5 or 10,000. And she called me, and this is a pretty strong-willed woman. And she called me, and she was actually in tears. And she's like, how can they do this? They already forced me to close for 3 days as a punishment. And now I got to pay this fine on top of it. And I don't, quite frankly, have this kind of money, because we're still recovering from all the time we were closed.
Right.
But they did it anyway.
Do you remember, or did you ever get a chance to talk with? I'm trying to. This is 4 years ago now, so I'm trying to remember the woman's name. I think it was Larvita. She had a restaurant in kind of dance hall,
Southwestern Minnesota. Yes.
Yes, and she fought tooth and nail. This woman, it was pretty interesting, and I don't give a shit about race or anything like that. She's a business owner and it was great, but she fit every stereotype of what's the so-called left thought. This is their people, is what they were kind of saying. And so she was a African American single mom with 2 or 3 kids, I think 3 young girls, but she ran
3 daughters. Yes, you are correct.
3 daughters. She ran a successful bar down there, and she wasn't going to take anyone's crap. Not Keith Ellison, not Tim Walz, nothing. And she fought this, and they came after her like she was the devil incarnate.
What's really interesting about that is Victoria White down in Rochester, one of the J6ers, single mom, I think she's got 4 children, and they went after her hard. All her children are biracial, and they literally she just got out of house arrest or the leg collar thing, whatever they call it, ankle bracelet.
Yeah, yeah.
So she took the plea deal because they broke her emotionally, financially, mentally, everything. But it's the same. It's the same pattern over and over and over again, where you will comply, and if you don't comply, we'll make you comply. And we see it time and time again. It's no different than all of these protests that we see right now.
Yeah.
We saw right after 2016, we saw the whole, what was it, Occupy. And then in 2022, it was BLM, or no, 2020 was, so it was 2016 was the Occupy, 2016
Right.
was BLM, which can we just call that Babies Lives Matter? I don't know. But and now we're in 2024 and we see all these universities and colleges having all this protest, like whether it's pro Hamas, Palestine, or anti-Israel, what have you. And nobody knows really what to believe, and they don't know if I don't think a lot of people even understand what the hell Zionism is, but
Yeah.
but at the same time they're picking sides, and they're picking sides based on, well, who is saying it? Is it a person that has an R, or is it a person that has a D in front of their name?
Exactly.
Did you
That-
have the I lived in California, so I went through the Governor gruesome Newsom phase of all this stuff during COVID. And what I wanted to know was there was a lot of hypocrisy here. So Governor Newsom, he slammed we shut everything down. I mean, we were hard shut down, everything, churches, stores, everything. The only ones that were open were the big guys, Walmarts and Costco's and Home Depot and stuff like that. But then you had Newsom coming in, and he would be caught at a restaurant without masks on. We had Nancy Pelosi going to go get pedicures and her hair done and stuff like that. What kind of stuff like that happened in Minnesota, if at all? I'm really curious about that.
I don't know if I don't recall if Walls was ever caught in one of those like dumbass moments. Could very well have been. There was so much going on, and continues to do so actually. But some of it's not as widely talked about. But between loved ones being locked away in a hospital and family not allowed to see them, or like a elderly care facility, what have you, and so many people are afraid to even go to a hospital, and so there was kind of this underground network that was created with good doctors and pharmacists that were willing to fill these prescriptions for what the people wanted. Because God forbid you walked into a hospital and you're sicker than a dog, what have you, and everyone was afraid. They didn't know. But if they said certain words, and 2 of them stand out more than any, and I've actually have told people, if you say those 2 words, you're likely going to get locked away. That was ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine.
Right.
And if you even uttered those words, you were probably in trouble. So, which still goes on to this day, actually, that there's many that are still in that arena. But there's been a lot of good ground covered since then. And, there was a patient that was flown from Minnesota to Texas because they wanted to end the life of that patient despite the family's wishes. And it was a bit of a fight. And a local attorney, lawyer, took on that battle, not in her legal wheelhouse, not her expertise by any means, but they did the same thing to her mother only a few months prior.
Really?
Mother had passed, and Ken, you actually know, I'm certain you know this attorney, and Marjorie, I'm sure you know.
Oh
her.
yeah, no, I absolutely know Marjorie.
Yes. Okay. So she took this on, and so she went head to head with the most prominent law firm in the state, and she was notified like at midnight 01, I believe, that they intended to fight once she filed a whatever you call it. I'm not a lawyer. I don't give any legal advice or medical advice, but she filed whatever she filed for a temporary restraining order, and then she got notified at, I believe it was 12:01 in the morning, that they were going to fight this. And so they had to go to court, I think the next day or the day after, whichever it was. I don't remember. It was like a blur. And she won that temporary restraining order. And she was explaining to me that how odd it was because she got a 30-day restraining order. And she said that normally it's a 3 to 5 day. And I said, none of that matters. We just have to get him out of there because if he passes from natural causes at this point, we're all going to assume they did something. If
Right.
if they do something, either way, we just need to get him out of there and see if there's a chance. Which I had never been. I didn't know anything about these medical flights or how much they cost or where you find them or any of this. It was a long couple of days, and um, he did get flown out, and there were some really good people that helped. There was some people that donated to her. She started a give send go thing, and there was one guy in the southeast part of the country or person. I don't even know if it's a guy, but one person donated 40 grand, which
Wow.
covered the bulk of the flight, the medevac flight down there. And you get these little tidbits of information. You're like, you almost kind of tear up, going, "Wow, really?"
Wow. Yeah, there's people that are actually willing to do that.
Yeah, and but out of that, a lot of progress has been made as far as bringing a lot of stuff to light. There's a lot of lawsuits currently in play that are happening right now, and
Do those
Minnesota.
do those lawsuits really do any good? I wonder about that. The idea of using the state's apparatus to sue the state, how does that it has to have some money behind it to have any horsepower, right?
Well, so in this case, it would be an individual suing a hospital for violating their wishes and then administering. I got to be careful here. Going against the wishes of the family.
So he's
And
suing the hospital, not he's not suing the government, he's suing the hospital of that kind of thing. I
correct.
gotcha.
So there's like 100 of them that I know of right now. There was a meeting in October of last year that I was at, and there's an attorney that's more on the national side, Marjorie being one, and there's a handful of others that are all going to help on the state side. So they basically, I think they call it ProHawk.
Mhm.
So the state attorney, the local attorney, is the voice piece for the national attorney that helps advise them, but because they're not licensed in the state to practice law. And but nevertheless, a lot of this is going forward, and I am aware that some of these cases have been settled. They can't talk about it,
Right.
but my understanding is everybody's happy. So if the complainant is happy, it must have been favorable.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Bruce, one of the things.
Shut them up. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah. Here's some. We'll take care of this thing, and that'll make it all better. Bruce, you were asking about the difference between California and Minnesota, and Shane, I think you might agree with me on here. What Walls did was the guy that said, "I'm going to get on the TV a couple times a day and scare the absolute shit out of everybody." And he got on and he was mocked because he had an interpreter that was doing sign language next to him who was completely upstaging him that whole first summer. Remember, I don't know who she was, but she was hilarious. But anyway,
Wait, Ken, wait a minute. She was being signed to because she was deaf. So they actually had a person facing her signing to her.
really,
Well,
I didn't know that.
yes. So there was a person signing to her to then sign back to the camera because they had that, I don't know, he, him, she, her
Yeah.
thing, non-binary, whatever all that means.
Yeah, it was a non-binary. That was something else. But during that time, if you remember all those speech, every day he'd get up and say, "Okay, well, here's what we're doing this time." And we've just recently, and he made a big deal out of it. The state bought a building that was a refrigerated building that used to store vegetables or something like that for production.
It was Beck's Produce.
Yeah, it was a produce place. He
$9
spent
million building.
to stack the bodies, and he got everybody freaked out in the state. That was, when I say anyone that was paying any kind of real attention, any of this stuff was like, "Whoa, it was just a stunt." I mean, it was a pure stunt. And he would just continually do these things and say, "Well, we have to do this and this." I remember going to a Joanne Fabrics when we were trying to make masks because of a relative that worked at a local hospital couldn't get masks, and like my wife could sew, we can make some. So we go to Joann Fabrics, and we had to stand out in line outside of Joann Fabrics, 6 feet apart for like 2 blocks. And and the local Gestapo was making sure that everyone stayed like that. And but like when you talk to the sheriff, this is where sheriffs got important. You talk to the sheriff, he wasn't buying any of it. Anoka County Sheriff at that time, James Stewart, yeah, just I think that's really his name, was James Stewart. He was fantastic during COVID for the people that were there. I talked to him quite a bit. And he's like, we're not going to enforce anything. If you're trespassing and stuff like that, or you go into a store and make a big scene, we're going to come and get you out of there. But he wasn't enforcing these ridiculous mandates from the government, because he was like, they're not constitutional. It's not law. I don't have to follow it. In fact, it's unconstitutional. I won't follow it. But if you're in the store without a mask or doing whatever you're doing and they tell you to get out, you just got to get out. That's their store. It's private property. If you don't get out, then I'm coming and I'll help you out. But and however you get out of the store, whether you're walking or thrown out, is up to you. And I agree with that. If I'm having a store and I'm freaking out, let's get this person out of here, huh? But kind of
no different than like if you approach a building and you're carrying in Minnesota, and it says, we prohibit firearms, what have you. Now you can enter, but if they figure it out or they realize it and they ask you to leave, you have to leave, because that is their private property. And so therefore that is the right thing to do. I mean, if you're going to stand around and stomp your ground and be a BLM guy and say, no, I can do what I want to do because the law doesn't apply to me. But at the end of the day, I will say that, a lot of those places, those soft target places, I'm not going to put myself in a position where, something bad happens. I have no way to defend myself or, whoever I'm with. However, if they somehow figure it out, what have you, and they ask me to leave, well, fine. Then we're all going to leave.
Exactly. And there's actually, go ahead, Bruce.
No, go ahead.
There's a mandate on, you have a sign on your door, and because I was involved with stuff, I'd pay attention to what this. I'm a gun absolutist. I would repeal every gun law. If I want a tank, I can get a tank. I want a jet, I want to get a jet. But you'd go into places, and I knew what the law was. In most places, they just put a sign up on the side or a Post-it note that says no guns allowed or something, or gun-free zone. Those are all, if the sign isn't up to state code, it's null and void. So there was a few places I went in. One of them was a art store, Dick Blick, in Maplewood, Minnesota. Or was it Maple? Yeah, it was Maplewood, just off from 36. And the woman in there was losing her mind because I wasn't wearing a mask. Losing her mind. And anyway, we got into a discussion because I was just waiting to check out. I'm like, I'm leaving in a second. My car's right out front. I'll be out of here in just 2 seconds. I got a nasal thing. I'll pass out if I wear it. And she lost and started screaming at it. She's like, you're making everyone sick in the store. She made a big stink about it. So they had the sign on the door that said, guns not allowed, but it was in like 3/4 of an inch tall little typed vinyl stuff that they put on the bottom of the door. So it was completely null and void. So on my way out, and I know what brandishing is and not brandishing is. On my way out, I was animated in a way that I had some big boards that I bought, some art boards, and I just happened to have moved the board in such a way that my coat opened as I was holding the boards with both hands. So I wasn't brandishing because both my hands were here. And I said, by the way, your gun sticker on the door there is not. It's all null and void because. The look on her face, she's like, get the fuck out of here. And she just started screaming. And there's 2 guys in the store that were sitting back, I don't know, following their wives around something. They were dying laughing. They were like, that's the funniest thing I've seen all day. All she could have done is, sir, you got to wear a mask if you want. We got your stuff because they were cutting some things. We'll walk. I'll park right out front. We'll walk it out to your car for you. Thanks for coming. Next time, please wear a mask. That's all a person would have had to do. But the whole state, well, I shouldn't say the whole state, the whole metro area lost their minds. People were treating other people like that. If you weren't, if you weren't carrying the card and had the face mask on, you were evil and obviously some sort of Trump supporter. And I'm like, this is lunacy. I got to get out of the state. Did you guys see that as much up where you were too, Jason?
Yeah. depending on where you went to, Menards all over the place was definitely that way, where they were fully enforcing it. So I quit shopping there and went to Home Depot instead because they didn't care.
Yeah, Home Depot was better. That was
Yeah,
one place.
they didn't give a rat's ass at all. So I said fuck you, Menards, and I went to Home Depot instead. I also noticed that certain Walmarts, also Egan, was heavily enforcing it. Lakeville wasn't, so I shopped at Lakeville. I would actually drive out of my way to wherever they were not enforcing it, and Fleet Farm wasn't enforcing it, so I shopped there a lot. Some Aldis weren't enforcing it, so I'd shop there too. But the closer you got to Minneapolis, the more they heavily enforced it. The further away you got, the more relaxed it got because people weren't so uptight.
I saw anywhere there was cameras too, it would be enforced. And if there weren't cameras, like in city hall meetings and that kind of thing, you know, where they were going on, they'd all come out with their masks on and stuff like that. The second the cameras turned off, masks off,
They
they're
took
into
them
the
off, yeah.
background. Yeah, because they knew it was a bunch of crap. And I raised all holy hell in the city of Ramsey to the fact that the mayor, I threatened him with losing his election. I said, you're going to lose this next election if you keep going down this, you know, and if you keep going down this path. He was trying to franchise fee and actually got it passed, ran it through. And I said, you're going to regret it. I said, I'm not threatening you with any kind of violence whatsoever, but I will make sure that you don't get elected again. In the next meeting you have here, I'm going to fill it with people. In the next board meeting I had 100 people standing outside that they wouldn't let in because of COVID.
Yeah. That's what happens here too. Shane, I got a question for you. We're going to feed off of this topic right here. So during COVID, of course, it split the society in half, and just really, really bad. And I know that in politics, you know, it's always Democrats versus Republicans, conservatives versus progressives, the right wing versus the left wing, blah, 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 whatever. And I've just noticed that politics has just become a team sport now. It's not a what do I want to say, a cooperative where you guys will at least compensate each other during your sessions and stuff like that. So how hard is it now, since COVID has passed, than before? Because you've had 6 terms now, so apparently you were serving before
3 terms.
COVID happened. 3 terms, and you were serving before. What's different, and can it be repaired?
So, from my perspective, I would say that the hyper politicization of COVID has certainly softened. There were some on the other side that were willing to come to, I don't know, if there was something that really was a worthy cause, they would be there for that. However, now, since in 2023 and 2024, since they have the trifecta, they don't give 2 hoots about any of us, anything other than their own agenda. And I say that because out of 201 legislators in the state, they occupy 104 seats between Senate and House. And no other voice matters. No outstate voice matters. No other constituent voice matters. Nobody matters other than what they want. We see this with Senator Mitchell, who's been charged with first-degree felony burglary, and they're allowing her to vote to make law-abiding citizens a felon on if they happen to own something that they bought years ago that has an internal component. They didn't even know that it was there. It wasn't even an issue, but because they decide it's an issue, and really it's about just demeaning the Second Amendment, um, it's their way or the highway. So all they care about is the 104 votes, and the districts to which they have their power in. And so I guess to your question, I would say there's not a lot of cooperation on, things that we could find common ground on. I had a representative who was pushing a bill that would require all new construction to be 70% efficient, energy efficient. Based on the numbers, easily would drop the cost of every new home at least 50 grand.
Yeah.
So we had a bit of a floor debate on this. And afterwards, because he's never built a house in his life, he's probably hardly ever swung a hammer. And if he did, he'd probably hit his thumb. But which I have done too. But I hit the nail more often than I hit my thumb. But the point being that he came over afterwards in the alcove, and he was trying to be extend the olive branch, if you will, is what it appeared to be. But the olive branch was only if you would accept his olives, not he wouldn't listen to the other side. And he got frustrated because I'm trying to explain, like, you have to understand, if you go down this path, you make every new house that much more expensive. There are those that can afford it, and there are those that cannot. But if you mandate this, and the technology is already there, it's been there for years, it's been there for decades. And Ken knows that I, this is what I do. And the return on investment is actually kind of low, depending on your age. I mean, if you buy a house in your mid 20s, maybe late 20s, you could probably get payback on it. But after that, it's getting pretty slim because some of it's so expensive, like in all the different technology you can do. And it became a very contentious conversation. And we're in the alcove, and I finally told him to fuck off.
So keeping on topic on that is like, this is like the first election season, and I went through the primary, and I didn't vote this primary, and I'm getting very disassociated with politics only because of that fact. And one of the reasons why is that the people that run in my districts and my state, I contact them, I talk to them as much as I can, and I ask this one simple question: if I vote for you, how are you going to reach your hand across the aisle? And I guess that's my statement. And because I'm torn because of this election, and I want to vote because I've always voted. And like I said, this was the first election, the primary election, that I didn't vote. I don't feel guilty about it, but I feel torn about it because, it's one vote that wasn't counted. And for those of you, or for those people that are out there that are like me that aren't voting, because I've got plenty of people shouting on me, going like, "You should vote because your vote counts."
I'm one of them.
Yeah, and I think
I'll be a second on that one.
Go ahead.
So Bruce, okay. I hear it all the time. You guys have to learn to work together, and I hear it constantly. And you have to learn to compromise. So, do you want me to compromise on the Second Amendment? Do you want me to compromise on abortion up to the date of birth or the day after? Do you want me to compromise on boys being allowed in girls' bathrooms and locker rooms so they can assault them and violate them? I mean, where do you want my compromise to start and stop? And this is where I have a problem, because they have moved so far on so many topics.
Right.
Do you want me to compromise on speaking out against all this renewable energy that's consuming agricultural land, which these are 62-year, up to 62-year leases, and so you're taking that productive agricultural land out of production for up to 62 years, but it's guaranteed 32 years, no matter what. And the landowner will likely, actually, all the ones I know that have signed up for it, God bless them, they're going to make a crap load of money, but they'll not see the end of that lease based on their age. It will not happen, because they would have to hit triple digits and be remarkably healthy. It's just not the likelihood. And probably because they played with too much Roundup and glyphosate through their farming days, and they didn't wear a mask because Executive Order 2081, which was the one that Walls put into play. I don't know why I can remember these stupid numbers, but anyway. And actually, that mask didn't actually do anything because I actually have masks that I'm required to wear for OSHA says so, and the mask they required us to wear didn't do anything for the particular matter of which we were trying to stop.
Right.
And if I wore the mask that actually would have stopped it, I was in violation of Executive Order 2081.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So
I
in
understand.
answer to your question, as far as reaching across the aisle, I don't know. Where do you want me to start and stop?
Yeah, I know that's a confusing question because when you put it that way, and as far as we've gone to, I mean, the pendulum swing back and forth, and as far as it's gone to the left, I mean, the craziness that's happened now under the Biden administration is totally lunatic. I mean, what I'm seeing on the news right now and what is popular as far as what I call lamestream media is concerned, because they keep doling out the propaganda, and it keeps just building up and up and up. Where I'm being forced, in a sense, to go like, I'm not willing to compromise anymore. And I'm not. I mean, if I said, okay, I'm going to promise to vote in 2024, I'm voting totally freaking on the right side, on the conservative side. And believe me, I'm not a total right hand, totally conservative person. I'm
He is
one
in
of those
California.
I'm one of those middle of the road guys. You know, I'm really conservative on spending and stuff like that. I'm really liberal on social issues and things like that. But there's a point when it comes down to the Constitution where I'm not willing to budge. I am not willing to budge on the Constitution at all. And whether that makes me not a centrist and more of a conservative, then that's what it is. And I mean, so that's where I'm conflicted at. And I think there's a lot of people out there that are conflicted like that.
I had a discussion with a senator, Senator Jim Abler in Minnesota. He was in my district, and most of the discussions him and I had were not very friendly. I was polite because I don't dislike the guy. He's an okay guy. He's a bactologist. But
He's a nice guy.
I told him, I said, hey, I want you to reach across the aisle, but I don't want you to reach out across the aisle to get dragged over there. You need to drag them our way. And I think that's where I'm with Shane. You know, there are people that you can work with. It's double secret probation for them. They can't tell you they're doing it. They can't, you know, there was even a few people on the right that they would secretly vote with you, but they wouldn't go to the meetings, and I can't be seen with you because this other group is going to take away my birthday, but I'll vote your way. And the reach across the aisle, the reason to reach across the aisle and work with the other side is to drag them over. And that's what the left has been doing brilliantly for 50 years. That's where they said, you know, here's this little part of the gun law that we can just take care of. 1934, no one can have automatic weapons. That's just common sense, right? You know what?
Okay.
It is just common sense. So that little bit happened, and a little bit happened because people got dragged over to the other side.
And if you look at House File 2609, which is binary triggers, which was packed in with increased penalty for straw purchases because of the Burnsville shooting, where two officers and EMT, a first responder, whatever, they all lost their life. And that was a case where that person was a prohibited person. And then I think from 2017 and 2020, he petitioned the state to get his gun rights restored. They denied it. And then he got this female to buy him firearms,
right,
and several of them. So a very emotional thing. And even some of our Republican members, I think 3, voted for that bill, even though it was banning binary triggers. Based on the way it was written in the House, it was very inclusive to a lot of things. And so, but they're caught between a rock and a hard place, because you want the enhanced penalty for the straw purchase. You don't want to be anti-Second Amendment, but the how raw that was, pain-wise, for some members, that especially one that I know specifically well, he's definitely not anti-Second Amendment, but he was the chief of police or worked in that police department for those officers that lost their lives.
right.
So how do you judge that man for voting in favor of it? Now, then it went amended to exclude, I believe, Glock, because Glock is the biggest one that has this issue. And they pass it there. Now it's going to come back because it's going to conference committee, and it'll come back. We'll all get a chance to vote on it again. But at the end of the day, the question comes down to, they whittle away little bits and pieces here and there. And I understand you want me to be bipartisan. You want me to work with others. You want me to understand. I grew up with a very Democratic mother and a very conservative father. I watched them joke. Come on, honey. My mom would always say, let's go cancel each other's vote.
Yeah.
But she made like fun out of it.
Right.
And she probably promised them some kind of like fun night. I don't know. Who knows? Because but she understood, but at the same time she was also very pro-life and very pro-Second Amendment as a hardcore Democrat. Her whole life, I would say she was more of a JFK Blue Dog Democrat compared to what we have now. And because in fact I do know, and I'm actually looking at my grandfather's thing you get at the funeral, and I had to drive her home. I drew the short straw on this one, and she gets in my truck, and my mom never cursed, and she would always scold me if I did, which I do too much. But she gets in my truck, and which rides like crap because it's a work truck, heavy duty truck, whatever. And she says, I can't vote for that effing Hillary bitch. and I'm like, I'm dumbfounded by this, going, wait, Mom, you just cursed. I don't care. I can't vote for that bitch.
Yeah.
And then I said, Mom, what do you think about Governor Dayton? And she goes, oh, I just love that man. I'm like, all right, you still are effing nuts.
Yeah. You're still crazy.
But I mean, like literally for her, that was a bridge too far, was Hillary.
Right.
But Dayton was awesome, right? I mean, in her mind. And that would have been probably about January 2-3 of 2016.
Sure.
When we headed back from Colorado, and it was like 17 hours. And she knew that she was stuck in a truck with her son, who's going to be playing conservative talk radio on Sirius XM the whole way home. And she's a liberal.
Exactly. Well, you have one other thing going on right now that you have just started with Walter Hudson, another rep there. And you guys have a podcast now. I think Bruce has got it. He's pulling it up here. I recommend anyone, if you're in Minnesota, for sure listen. If you're out Minnesota, even more, you need to listen to this podcast, because these guys are really speaking. They are power, and they're speaking truth to power. And I imagine the feedback you're going to be getting in this, as this grows, is going to be pretty exciting.
Yeah, I think we're going to be changing the name of the show. I mean, it'll still be Hudson Mekeland, but I think we're going to. My idea of this was a couple of years ago when I first threw it at Walter, and then of course he bust my balls, going, "Have you got anywhere with that yet?" I'm like, no, we're in session, blah blah blah. And then it was campaign season, whatever. And plus, when you're out of session, you have to work. I mean, that's what we do.
Right.
You got to go build decks. You got to do something, right?
You actually don't get paid that much. I know what you guys get paid, and it's not that much.
No, but you have to, and then even when you're building a deck or finishing a basement or replacing windows, siding, whatever, I don't care. And then you get these constituents that call, because they call all year long, or email, what have you. So and if you actually give two shits about the people, you actually respond. And then I tend to talk too much, so what could have been a 3-minute conversation, I turned into a 25-minute conversation. But at the end of the day, we find a solution to, or connect said person to whatever the need is, if you will. And but yes, to stay with Walter, and where it's going, where I believe it's going to go, is going to be really fun. We just kind of came to the conclusion that while we don't have all the parts that we want right now in play, we'll get there. But for the here and now, let's just get something going. So we're doing them, once a week at this point. And we just did one today. I think he said he would probably have this thing posted tomorrow, which will be in the ERA debate, Equal Rights Amendment debate, on the floor tomorrow. And which is not an equal rights amendment. It's a strip your liberties amendment, because it'll strip your religious liberties. It'll put it in the Constitution that a boy can go into a girl's bathroom or locker room or what have you.
Oh,
I
it's
mean,
that one.
yes, because it includes gender identity. They took out the word sex and put in gender. And then so Title IX is gone. So like my little girl, who, well, she was never much of a she did a lot of sports. I won't say she excelled in them, but she enjoyed them. I don't know if she ever set a record, but damn it, if she ever did, and then some boy says, I'm going to be in the girl sport because I suck at boy sports, so I'm going to go participate in the girl sports. And if that dude took away my daughter's like record,
Accomplishment. Yeah.
I would be pissed. And not only that, but if he's going to walk into the locker room when she's showering, well, quite frankly, I would just tell her, just suck it up, Buttercup. You just come home and shower. I mean, just be sweaty in the car. I mean, it's not worth that risk at that moment. And we saw what happened in many other states where this is occurring. So, to me, that's not that's not worth it. But this is what we're going to hear tomorrow, and my understanding, it's going to be a long day on this one single bill. And unfortunately, they're going all in because they have all control of the House, the Senate, and the governorship. Yep. And they're not going to let it go, because they're going to keep this one first-degree felony charged burglar, allow her to vote, and even vote. She even votes on motions that would expel her from the Senate.
Voting. And she's the deciding vote. Not just vote. She's the deciding vote.
Where are the feminists in this movement? Where are they? Are they gone? Come on. All I listened to the whole time I grew up, when I first started listening to politics, was women's right, was the women have this right, women have that right. And I had no problem with that. But now it seems like there's a silence. The Me Too movement went totally out the door when COVID went by. And just,
the funny thing about the Me Too movement,
it frustrates the crap out of me.
The funny thing about the Me Too movement, it was hashtag Me Too, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was the social
and the My Body,
thing.
My Choice, the My Body, My Choice.
But hashtag Me Too. What did we call a hashtag prior to calling it a hashtag?
Pound sign.
Pound Me Too.
Yeah. Yep. That's right.
The funny thing is, who pointed that out to me was a person that is a female, because there's only two genders, by the way, but it was a female that works for a congressperson that pointed that out to me, going, I'm like, oh, that's funny. You try not to make these kind of things with the opposite sex, because you don't want to get accused of sexual harassment, obviously. And
I try to, actually. That's one of my hobbies. I try to absorb as much sexism and sexual harassment as I can personally, project out to the world.
Maybe you're just trying to attract as much sex as you can, because, I think you said you had a multicultural wife, or whatever you called it, or something.
Yes, multiracial. There we go.
So wouldn't that be like American Mutt?
Yeah, I'm multiracial too. I'm Irish and French.
I'm a multiracial family myself, so I'm right in there.
My mother was Native American. She's Cherokee or has ancestry from Cherokee, German, Polish. My dad is Norwegian, German. Yeah. I mean, I am the epitome of the Heinz 57 flipping mutt. But I can claim, because even in my office down at the Capitol, I have my mom's big dream catcher that she had for years, and it's a big one. And people come in and they're like, "What is that?" It's a dream catcher. Why? I get that. Why do you have it? Because it's my mom's. Why would your mom have that? Because she's Cherokee, and was. and it's so funny because you don't look like it. I'm like, yeah, I know, but you should see my brother, because he got all that gene and I got all the Norwegian stuff. And luckily, I didn't get my dad's red hair nor his damn freckles, because he doesn't get tan. His freckles just connect.
Shane, are you able to stay on for a while more? Because we love to discuss more stuff.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, we're coming across a hard stop for the original show, so we're coming up on an hour. I like to keep the show for an hour. There's a link I think that Jason is going to be giving you for the other part of the podcast. But go ahead and promote everything that you got going on right now, and then we'll shove it off to the other side and do some bonus content.
Very good.
Go ahead.
Are we-
Go ahead. You're on.
Podcast website. What you got?
What you got?
Are we
Plug
off now?
yourself. Plug yourself.
No, we're still going.
on.
Oh,
Plug yourself.
well, plug myself would be Shane. What is it? Shane at ShaneMekeland.com, and
There we go.
that's where somewhere there's a donate button on there. I guess I don't know.
That's
always a
at
good
Hudson
thing.
Mekeland. Yeah, at Hudson / or Hudson.Mekeland. That's your YouTube site.
Well, yeah, whatever that thing is. I sent you guys that link. But there's that too. I don't know if you guys can post that or put it in like print.
Yeah, we'll get that in the show notes.
Yeah.
Well, I just before we just go to like Shane, thanks for coming on. This was something we've been wanting to do for a while. I've been wanting you to meet these guys just because I try to explain. I'm like, there are people in government positions that get reelected that are really trying to fight the good fight, and they need to be supported. And so, go to Shane Mekeland, Shane at ShaneMekeland.com, the ShaneMekeland.com site. There's a donate button. Donate to him if you agree with it. If you don't agree with it, donate anyway, because it makes for interesting, talk in the Capitol. At least just to drive other people crazy. Get Shane, keep him in there. So, Shane, thanks. And we have a little after show that we do, and I'll let you take it out, Bruce. It's your
Absolutely, man. Again, well, thank you, Shane, again for being here. We do this every Sunday from 7 o'clock on until we're done at 8. And this is the Weather Report. I want to thank Ken, Mad K Studios, Jason from Horrible Designs. Didn't seem like it doesn't seem like Harkos was able to be here tonight, but don't worry, he'll be back one of these days. I haven't fired him. I haven't let him go. He's our little our whipping post. So he's not here to defend himself, so we can say whatever.
Probably also the smartest one out of the three of us too. So.
Probably the smartest one out of the three of us.
Maybe.
But again, go grab Shane Mekeland. It's Shane Mekeland or Shane at ShaneMekeland.com. There you go. You can catch him on YouTube at the Hudson.Mekeland podcast. Great show. Thank you guys. We'll see you next week with some bonus content. And I'll leave you with this. You guys have a great day and be good to yourselves. We'll see you guys later.
See ya.